Okay, we started the recording, and I will post this one as well. What else? Okay, chapter 1 will be due on Tuesday. Again, it's pretty, there's a lot of hoops to drop through, so to jump through. So we're going easy on that one. Just work through everything, and we're just going to make it 100%. If you jump through all the hoops, I mean, you have to do them. You have to do everything, and so I want you to get off to a good, solid start, at least to know how this thing works. Okay. Any questions about anything? Let's start out with that. Okay, I hope I'm letting everybody in. Okay. Any questions at all? Shoot. Meaning of life, you know, and economics. Okay, well, let's get started. Now, as I mentioned before, Zoom doesn't let me draw except for with my mouse. Now, I know there's a way, I've seen it, to hook up my iPad so that I can draw the way I usually draw graphs and stuff live, but I have not figured it out yet. So I am going to play a video I made of what now here we go. Share computer sound. And I'm going to now tell me this. As soon as I click this, tell me if you see me anymore. Okay, here I am. Am I gone?
No.
I'm still there?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm trying not to be there. I want to play this. Okay, you see the video. Now, I recommend you expand your screen so you can see the whole thing here. Well,
okay, so what's the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Yes.
Well, macro is the whole forest, okay? It is, well, let's keep it in economic terms. It's the whole economy. Micro is individual markets. So, in the labor market, doctors, truck drivers, accountants, teachers, they're just all lumped together and called labor in macroeconomics. In microeconomics, well, we do recognize that they are individual markets, that there are differences, okay? So when we say macroeconomics is the whole economy or the whole forest, we're just looking broadly, not too much detail. In microeconomics, we're looking at what kind of trees there are. We're looking closer in the goods market. Tennis rackets, automobiles, oranges, okay?
So when we talk about the 10 principles of economics, it goes for both of them, macro and macro?
They're just all goods. Goods and services, right? In micro, we do make a distinction. So macro, we talk about broad measures of economic activity like gross domestic product, and where we just look at the value of all final goods and services produced in the economy, period. And in micro, again, we look at different markets. The technology sector is different than the financial sector, for example, okay? Now, there's a couple of other ways to dissect economics. Okay, there is positive economics. and normative. Positive economics makes a claim about what is, how the world actually works. Okay, so I'm going to just put what is. Normative economics talks more about how things should be. Okay, what should be. See if I dare write. See if anybody can read that. So positive economics will make a claim about, you know, if interest rates fall, then houses, demand for homes increases, okay? That kind of thing. 2 plus 2 equals 7. That's positive economics. Now, we know 2 plus 2 does not equal 7. It's still positive economics. The thing about positive economics is that you can refute it. You can gather data and actually refute the proposition. So it doesn't have to be true, it just has to be refutable. Whereas normative economics, we're talking about values and ideology, and you know, some people, what one person thinks is fair may be very different than what someone else thinks is fair. For example, if you're talking about things that are fair, I mean, ask 100 people what fair means, and you could easily get 100 different answers. So we're going to focus on positive economics. That's what this course is about. And you know, we can talk about what's fair all day long and never come to a conclusion, and frankly never learn anything. So let me give you a few examples. Okay, you tell me, what if this is normative or positive. Rent control causes apartment shortages. Is that a normative statement or a positive statement? Versus, we need rent control to keep housing affordable for the poor.
Or normative?
See the difference? Rent control causes apartment shortages. That is making a claim about what rent control does. What happens? If this, then that. That's positive. That's a positive statement. We need rent control to keep housing affordable for the poor. Well, that's an opinion. Maybe we don't need to keep it affordable. Maybe keeping it affordable is, you know, it's going to cause apartment shortages, which is what it does.
Better ways to address the problem.
So if you have a severe shortages, actually rent controls, where it's been tried, homelessness has increased. So yes, it keeps it affordable, but if there's nothing available, see, that's a problem. Yeah, it's affordable, but there's none of them exist. There are no apartments to rent, right? Doesn't matter how affordable it is if it doesn't exist. Okay, if the price of beer goes up, students will drink less. Yeah, well, that's a positive statement. You know, we'll learn about that when we talk about supply and demand. When the price rises of something, quantity demanded falls. All right? Versus, the price of beer should be increased because students drink too much. Well, sounds like kind of a normative thing, doesn't it? I mean, how do you gather data on that? Well, you know, maybe they do drink too much. Maybe the grades will go up if we lower the price of beer and they drink a little bit before class. I doubt it. But it's a normative statement. It doesn't have, okay, see, that makes sense to me personally. But you know, that isn't the metric that determines whether it's normative or not. Okay, it's normative, whether it makes sense or not. Okay, it's still something that you can't necessarily gather data. It's an opinion on the way things ought to be. Okay, so we've got positive and normative. We've got micro and macro, and then we've got positive and normative. And then we've got, well, let me add this. A lot of the debates in economics are normative. Oh, they say economists can't agree about anything, but economists are people too, more or less. They have ideas, they have values, they have ideology, they have the opinions on the way things ought to be. So, you know, again, this is a lot of fun to argue about, talk about, but if we did that, how much of this could we do? So the course is really about what we know about economics. And, there will be some normative issues, don't worry. Okay, now, now we're going to talk about economic models. Okay, whoops. Well, let's spice it up with a different color. Economic models. A model is a simplification of reality. That's what a model is. Now, a map is a great example of a model. A map, let's say a map of Syracuse. If it has your house on it, how good a map is it? I mean, that's a lot of detail if it has all the houses. You'd have to have this enormous map. You know, there's a model that probably, I would say most certainly provides too much detail. If your goal is to just kind of get around Syracuse, you don't want a map with every single teeny tiny thing on it. That's too big. So you could argue that, well, a model is unrealistic. Well, yeah, it's a simplification of reality. It's a simplification, which means it's unrealistic. But you got to look at the purpose for which we're going to use the model. If the use is to get around Syracuse, then a map of the roads, the main roads, is what you need, and it's usable. So models are, by definition, unrealistic. What we do is we try to weed out information, items that are not important to the model, details. You know, we want to get rid of all the stuff that we don't want to deal with and just focus on the things that we do. Okay, physicists make assumptions about gravity and friction, and they often will use a vacuumless tube. Okay, so that's unrealistic. Excuse me, they use a frictionless vacuum. No friction, no friction. That's unrealistic, right? But it helps them determine what the limits are. When you know what the limits are on either end, that's useful information. Economists make several assumptions in building models, and one assumption is ceteris paribus. When we do our analysis, we're assuming all else equal, okay? Or all else remains the same. Ceteris paribus means we're going to change one variable and all the others don't change. Now, if you've had multivariable calculus, it's a partial derivative. That's when you let one variable change and all the others don't change. That way you can isolate how that one particular variable affects, something else. So, for example, if we want to know what affects the demand curve for the bicycles, well, we can look at the price of the bicycle, the price of cars, the price of skateboards, maybe a substitute, things like that, income. certainly plays a part. So we would change, if we're going to change, we want to see how bikes respond to a change in income, we would hold the price of other goods constant. Because if we let them all change at the same time, we can't isolate what's going on there with income. So we ceteris paribus, one of the big assumptions. Another assumption, and this is, we won't talk about all of them right now. I'm just listening to some of the main ones. Another one that gets a lot of heat because it's so widely misunderstood, I think, is that it's assumed that we economists assume people are rational in their choices. Well. We know people aren't always rational, right? So there is an unrealistic assumption. It's unrealistic. How can we use an assumption that's unrealistic? Well, we're not saying people are rational all the time, but what we're saying is they're rational enough most of the time to make it a useful predictor of human behavior. We don't say, here's a common misconception of that is by saying people are rational, what it doesn't say, what it does not mean is that people never make a mistake. No, that's not what rational means. What rational means, at least in the economic sense, is that people people will choose purposefully based on the information they currently have. They'll make the best choice for themselves based on current information. So if I'm out in the market to buy a used car, or any car, I may check a couple of dealers in Syracuse. Well, then maybe I should check a couple of dealers in Rochester. And then, okay, maybe Buffalo, maybe Albany, maybe Boston. At some point, you've got to make a decision. No, you don't have all the information on every single used car in the world. But at some point, the cost of getting more information exceeds the benefit of getting more information. A rational consumer will draw the line at some point and say, you know what? I've got I've got lots of information. I'm going to have to make a decision. Now, it could turn out that there was a car in Atlanta that was exactly what he wanted, better price. So you could say he made a mistake. It was irrational to buy the one in Rochester. He missed it. See, it's a misunderstanding. So, at some point, you've got to make a decision based on limited information, and there's an optimal amount of information. So yes, people make mistakes all the time. People do dumb things all the time. We see it especially when the benefits and the costs are separated by time. For example, smoking. Yeah, it's irrational to smoke, but the benefits are today, or eating enchiladas, too much pizza. That's my thing. The benefits are right now. Oh, they're so good. They're so good. And the costs are way out in the future. So that's an area where what we need to do is take the present value of those costs, bring them back to the present, and yes, the costs do exceed the benefits, but people have trouble with what we call intertemporal choice. But anyway, yes, people are not rational all the time, but overall it's a fairly good predictor of human behavior. People will buy more at lower prices. They'll buy less at higher prices. Okay, they tend to prefer short lines to long lines. Okay, that kind of thing. They don't purposely try to make decisions that harm themselves overall. Okay. All right. Well, that is well, we got just a couple other things. I'm not going to go into great detail here, but some things we're going to run into in the course, some things that we will come up, and that is association is not the same as causation, okay? Just because something happens at the same time, they're associated together, but that don't nearly always, one doesn't necessarily cause the other. All right, so one of my favorite examples is it is true that married men make more money than single men. So there's an association there. Money, marriage. But does one cause the other? And if so, which one? Is it does the marriage cause the money? Meaning, well, after a man gets married, man, he's motivated. He's going to go out there and work harder. Or does the money cause the marriage? Well, the guys with the money are a little more attractive, right? So sometimes causation is hard to determine, but just because something are associated doesn't necessarily mean that there's one causes the other, or if they do it, sometimes it's difficult to determine which way. What else is interesting here? The secondary, here's one. Outcome, oh, my writing's atrocious, I'm sorry, is not necessarily, well, I would say outcome is independent of intent. We sure wish that weren't true. People with great hearts do things that can, they intend for it to go well. I would say one example, raising the minimum wage, let's say, to $30. Let's pick an outrageous number. You know, economists debate over exactly at what point does the minimum wage cause unemployment. As we will see, if the minimum wage is below the equilibrium or market clearing wage, it doesn't cause any unemployment. Of course, it doesn't really do anything because the wage was, market wage is higher anyway. But if you raise the minimum wage above our market clearing wage, jobs will be lost. So where exactly that point is debatable, but let's pick a number, $50 an hour. How's that? You know, if they actually pass a law that says the minimum wage is $50, I gotta believe that their intent, they just had great big hearts and they wanted to help people. But what would be the outcome? The outcome would be a disaster. Nobody could hire anybody. Nobody would have jobs. I mean, businesses would go out, you know. So anyway, so that is our little introduction to basic economics. What is some of the things that we're going to talk about during the semester?
All right. Well, there's one more thing I forgot to mention.
Is this the worst financial crash that we've seen in our lifetimes? And where can we go from here? Joining me today is a very special guest, legendary investor Jim Rogers, co-founder of the Quantum Fund. Jim, it's such an honor to finally have the chance to speak with you. You're joining us all.
Okay, let's see. All right, I'm back in here. I hate that with YouTube. It just goes into the next random video. I have no idea what that was. So one other thing I wanted to mention that I didn't in that little recording is the difference between, okay, economists assume people are self-interested. that is often misinterpreted as the same as being selfish. What's the difference between being self-interested and selfish? Anybody? Is there a difference? Well, Mother Teresa, I don't think anybody would say that Mother Teresa was a selfish person. I really don't think so. Self-interested simply means that you pursue your optimal course. You do what's best for you. You don't purposely make decisions that are going to harm you. You do your best to make decisions that will help you based on the information you currently have. Being selfish just means you can only care about yourself and nobody else. See, there's a difference there. Mother Teresa is a great example. I don't think anyone would say she was selfish, but was she self-interested? Of course she was. Most certainly she was self-interested. She pursued the course in her life that gave her the most significance, the most fulfillment. She loved to help people. She felt good when she helped people, and therefore, when she pursued the path that gave her the most fulfillment and happiness, that's being self-interested. So we assume that people are self-interested and rational. That's different than being selfish. Okay. All right. Any questions about anything? Questions, comments? Are you still out there? I see a lot of muted mics. Someone say.
Yeah, we're here.
We're here.
Thank you. Thank you. It was starting to get lonely here. And I'm new enough at this Zoom thing, and I'm sorry about the on-the-job training. I'm getting a little smoother, but I just hate to keep droning on and nobody see me or hear me. Well, I don't care if you see me, but okay. Well, let us continue. And I exited everything to get rid of that video. I couldn't. Let's see. Oh, geez. Oh, there we go. Okay. We're now ready to get into the production possibilities. Our first model. We've talked about models. Now we're going to get in production possibilities. And this is chapter 2 we're talking about. And the other model in the chapter, don't worry too much about. We'll talk about that later. It's the circular flow model. We'll get to it when we get to it. But production possibilities, this model is very important because we use it in the next chapter as well, chapter 3. Chapter 3 is one of the harder chapters in the course. So you want to get a good feel for the production possibilities curve. So here we go again with a pre-recorded presentation until I figure out a way to use the iPad. Here we go.
We've talked about micro and macro. We've talked about positive and normative. We've talked about economic models and assumptions. So now we are going to look at our first economic model. And that is the production possibility. The production possibilities curve. Production possibilities curve, or production possibilities frontier. Now, this model demonstrates 2 of the 10 basic principles of economics in chapter 1. One was that the people face trade-offs and they incur opportunity costs. As you recall, well, let's actually write it down. I'll print it so you can halfway read it. Opportunity costs. Opportunity cost is what you give up to get something. What did you give up to attend school this semester? You gave up something. Well, what did you give up? You gave up some money, okay, tuition, you gave up that. You gave up your time. And time is often the most expensive cost because you can't be two places at the same time, right? So whatever thing is, there's a lot of things you've given up. A lot of possibilities, I should say. The highest valued of those possibilities is your opportunity cost, okay? So let's say you gave up $5,000 to be here, and the time, during that time that you were in class and studying, you could have made, let's say 10,000, just make the numbers easy. So what's your opportunity cost of attending college? Well, 5,000 in tuition and the 10,000 of foregone wages, $15,000. It's your opportunity cost. Now the 5,000 in tuition is called an explicit cost. It's money you actually pay. You reach in your pocket and you pay it out. An implicit cost is something is the alternative use of your time. It's what you could have done with that time. So if your highest valued use of that time is spending more time with your grandma, that's your opportunity cost. Okay, you spent the opportunity cost being there is you could have spent time with your grandma and of course the $5,000 spent on tuition. So the best definition is simply it's what you give up. Whatever you give up to get something else is your opportunity cost. Okay, the production possibilities curve models that. So what it is because resources are limited, there's a ceiling on how much an economy can produce in a given point in time. There's only so much you can do. So it's the maximum. So here it is. We've got assumptions. We got to take care of those assumptions before we look at it. The assumptions behind the production possibilities curve is that we have fixed amount of resources and technology. And that's another way of saying this is at a point in time. It is not over time. It's not like from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, because we know resources and technology are not fixed over time. But at a point in time, it's fixed. So whatever resources, technology we got at that moment, that's what we're doing. And we're also assuming efficient use of these resources. And we simplify in a world with a zillion goods. Okay, we definitely do simplify here. We'll knock it down to just 2 goods. Okay, one on each axis. Or 2 types of goods to illustrate the trade-off between the two. Okay, so let's move that up a little bit. Okay. Here it is. This here we will say is guns. We're going to use the classic example, guns. And butter. So more precisely, guns, this would be military type goods. Okay, society can do that, or this would be consumer type goods. Okay. And we draw our curve in. If we produce, well, let's say if we do nothing but guns, we produce. Okay. Let's give that a number. So that's 10. If we do nothing but butter, let's just say 10. Right there. That's how many we can do. So if we do nothing but butter, if all our resources are for butter, we can produce 10 of them. And we can produce any combination in between. Okay, so we draw the curve, looks something like that. Now, the reason it's bowed out, that is to model the fact that not all resources are equally suited for all types of production. Now, that's something we'll talk about a little later. I'll give you an example that kind of knocks that in for you. Okay, so, well, before we go on, here, pick a different color. That point right there, let's call that point A. That is inefficient because at point A, we're producing this many guns, this many butter and this many guns. Well, that's less than we're capable of producing, right? So anything inside the curve is inefficient. We can produce, if we're producing this many guns, we're capable of producing that many butter.
I don't know what happened to what happened there. Point A is inside here. You can see my cursor? It'd be inside the curve. I don't know where it went, but that's where it is. Anything inside the curve, anywhere in here, is inefficient.
Or if we're producing this much butter, if we used our resources efficiently, we could produce that many guns. So anything inside doesn't work. Now, a great example of being inside the curve is right now. Okay, it's right now. We have pretty much shut down our economy because of this coronavirus. And, it's not from any economic policy. It's not from anything other than just we had to hold ourselves up at home, and therefore we couldn't work, and because we weren't working, we didn't have any money, and because we didn't have any money, we couldn't buy stuff, and because we couldn't buy stuff wasn't being made. Of course, we weren't there to make it. Everything just froze. The economy just froze. So we went on the curve. Anywhere on the curve is efficient. That's the maximum, to inside the curve. Well, anything outside the curve, let's say right there,
thank goodness,
is unattainable. Point B, we'll call it. You can't be at point B. This is the maximum. This is the maximum you can produce. You can produce any combination. You can produce 10 guns and 0 butter. You can produce 10 butter and 0 guns, but you can't produce out here. You can't have 10 guns and 10 butter. Can't have them both. Okay, so inside the curve is inefficient. On the curve is efficient. That's our maximum. And of course, the assumption is we are utilizing our resources efficiently. That's on the curve. Now, and then outside the curve is unattainable. Unattainable at least today. Okay, now out in the future, we can probably get to point B. That's called economic growth, and that's something else it models. This curve models economic growth over time. See, next year that may be our production possibilities curve. And the year after that, maybe that's where it is. And then the year after that, see, this thing shifts out over time as we get more technology, more human capital, more knowledge and skills, more resources can push that curve out over time. And that we call economic growth, which we will talk about in a later chapter. More detail. Okay. Now, let's plug in some numbers. Let's say we started right here doing all butter. Okay, we're doing all butter. And we're doing great. Man, our standard of living is just phenomenal. We're all working hard. We got all these consumer goods. But then the guys over on the other side of the hill are kind of jealous of all our stuff. They're jealous. They are wanting our standard of living. Well, instead of working hard and making it themselves, they thought it'd be just easier to come take our stuff. So they're building up a big army over there. So we figure, you know what? We probably ought to defend ourselves here. So we probably ought to start making some guns, some military. Not a bad idea. What will have to happen to butter production in order to make guns? You're going to have to give up some butter. You're going to have to transfer resources away from butter into guns. So let's say you decide to produce 5 guns. What is the opportunity cost of producing 5 guns? Well, remember, opportunity cost is what you give up to get something. What did you give up? Well, you went from 10 guns down to this many guns. So we haven't given that a number yet. Let's say that's 7. What is your opportunity cost of producing those 5 guns? 3 butter. You went from 10 butter down to 7 butter. It cost you 3 butters, 3 units of butter to produce those 5 guns. Well, let's say you figure, well, you know what? Those guys are pretty mean looking. Maybe we better produce a little more guns. Okay, so you increase gun output. Again, what must you do? You're going to have to channel resources away from butter into producing those guns. So let's say that's 5. So what is your opportunity cost of going from 5 to 7? Now notice how I say this. What's the opportunity cost of increasing your gun production from 5 to 7? Well, you went from 7 down to 5 butters. So going from 5 to 7 guns cost you 2 butters. Your opportunity cost of going from 5 to 7 guns is 2 butters. What's the total opportunity cost of those 7 guns? Well, from 10 down to 5. It costs you 5 butters to produce those 7 guns. Okay? So that's the idea. That's what the production possibilities curve does. It models scarcity, it models trade-offs, it models opportunity cost, it models the limits. And that's a very important concept, actually, limits. There is a limit. You know, sometimes we think the economy is so big. Oh, there's no limits. There's no trade-offs. Yes, there are. You're watching too many politicians. Politicians play this game, this economic game. Now, granted, some of them are quite economic illiterate, but most of them know exactly what they're saying. They know there are trade-offs, but you'll never hear that in election season. There is no such thing as a trade-off in election season. You can have it all. We can vote for your favorite candidate, and you will have everything. No trade-offs. Okay, so politics doesn't do much for economic literacy, but there are trade-offs, there are limits, there are costs and benefits, even in an economy as big as ours. So that's something, that's an important concept to get through right now. Okay, well, I've got some more examples. We're going to play with this a little bit more, but I see this video is getting now 16 minutes long. I'm trying to keep these in the small, sizable, bite-sized chunks. So we will end this one and come back and talk about economic growth and why the production possibilities curve is bowed out.
Okay, let's see if I can get out of here. There we go. Well, I'll tell you, I honestly don't know when this class ends. When does it, is it an hour? It used to be an hour. What?
Just want to let you know, you said earlier about YouTube. If you don't want the videos to play, there's an option that says autoplay, and your autoplay option is on. I just saw.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How do I
go back to YouTube?
Yeah.
Go back to the videos that you were just on.
Yeah.
Where it just ended. I can show you.
Well, let me yeah, appreciate that. That's always driven me crazy. Well, let's see. Okay.
Now click on the video.
Okay, just
now on the top right corner it says autoplay.
Okay,
blue.
So what's the difference between microeconomic?
On the top right.
Oh, right. The other right.
Right here, below that. Autoplay.
Ah.
Hit that. Now you move.
Thank you. You know that when a video ends, I just want it to end, especially here in class. All right, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, let me. Let's see. Where am I trying to get? Well, that's not taking me there. All right. Going in the long way. Are there any questions? Shoot. Does this make sense? Production possibilities, all that. Sorry, I don't know what happened to my presentation where some of it wasn't in there. The drawing wasn't in there, but I think we got most of it. That's explained pretty well in a couple of videos. Paul Solomon talks about it, and yeah, I think it's there's quite a bit in there in the text. It's a pretty simple model, but it's very powerful in that it models a lot of important concepts of scarcity and trade-offs and opportunity costs and economic growth when that thing shifts out, and the fact that not all resources are equally suited for all types of production. That's why it's bowed out. We'll get to that next time. But I'd like to finish off by watching a video, a great video on opportunity cost.
Hey, Mr. Ford.
Yeah.
So is chapter 1, is that homework? Is that due on Tuesday?
Tuesday, yes. Tuesday, and I'll go in there and I'll set the date. I don't think I have any dates set for those, but I'm giving you a little extra time on these because we are, it takes a little bit to get up and running, and everybody's busy as can be the first week. And like I said, I want you to go through everything, but if you jump through all the hoops, I'm just going to give you full credit for everything in chapter 1. Get you off to a good, solid start. So the objective really is just to learn how to access, get loaded up in the MyTap and access it and read the text. do
chapter-
just the whole thing. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, but if you can jump through them all, you get full credit and get off to a good solid start. We're talking about chapter 2 now. I mean, chapter 1 is just basic economic concepts that you see throughout. It's basically a one chapter course in micro and macroeconomics is what it is. And frankly, if I try to cover it, it's easy to get lost in that because it's hard to know where to pull the plug. Because like I say, it's like the whole book there in one chapter. So it's just an intro, but now we're getting into the meat of it here in chapter 2. And we will finish that up, by the way. We'll finish up chapter 2 on Tuesday. We've got a little bit left to go, maybe work some problems, and we'll go from there. But let's finish up today. Again, now these classes used to be an hour and 15 minutes long, but they kind of changed they changed things a little bit, and I forgot to look. So does anyone have an ending time for this class?
11.
Oh, it ends right at 11?
Yes.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. I didn't realize that. Okay. Well, we won't go quite till 11 today. There's only so much we can take. Now, normally with Zoom, they're only going to let me do 40 minutes at a time. And we'll get a nice little break as we change, go from one Zoom period to another. So that'll be kind of nice. Today they gave me the full length because I scheduled, I don't know, they're being nice for the first couple of times. All right, well, let's watch a video and then we'll call it quits for today. Here it is. This is Paul Salmon. Great little video on opportunity cost.
This video introduces one of the most important and useful concepts in economics, opportunity cost. Let's begin at a college football stadium just outside Boston. Partly, I was here in my capacity as sports nut. Touchdown! One of the many fans following the fortunes of the Boston College Eagles. But the armchair economist in me was looking for more than an easy win. Seeing that so many people had chosen to spend their day cheering their favorite team to victory, I wondered first about the economic benefit these fans placed on attending the game.
Let's say I offered each of you, I said, I'm going to buy your ticket. You can't go to the game.
How much would you offer?
$10.
Not worth it.
Would anybody take 15?
No.
75?
No.
80? If I give you 80?
I'd take 80. I set my limit at 100.
Let's say I offered you $100 for your ticket.
I don't think so, Charlie. I don't see that. I'm sorry. I can't do it.
$500.
No.
$600.
No.
Come on. I'd give you $600 right now.
No, this is my day. This is it, yeah.
So if I'd offer you $10,000, you literally wouldn't do it?
No. No.
No price?
No price.
Now, maybe this guy's ticket really is priceless. We'll check in with him later to find out. But whether his or any of the other fans' economic thinking is sound depends on whether the benefit is equal to or greater than the cost, the total cost. In economics, what's known as the opportunity cost. Everything which is given up to get something else. In this case, what's given up to attend this game. How does an economist look at opportunity cost? We asked Professor Mary Stevenson of Boston College's rival, the University of Massachusetts.
Well, it's the single most important concept in economics. It's the choices that we have to make and what we sacrifice when we make a choice. For many of us, we have hard choices to make about how we're going to spend our limited money. But even for people who have lots more money than we do, there's still the question of how you're going to spend your time. Even somebody like Bill Gates has to make choices about how to spend his time because he has the same hours in the day that the rest of us do.
In other words, the practical implication of scarcity in economics is that everything we do has a cost, an opportunity cost. Suppose, for example, that we asked Nobel laureate economist Robert Solow to speak to your class. In economic terms, how would he analyze it?
I say to myself, what would I do with the time and trouble that it's going to take me to prepare for this class, give the class, answer the questions, come back home, take a shower, and settle down for the evening? And that will give me a number. Suppose I can value that time and trouble. The thing I would do instead of doing that is something that I would pay $1,000 to do. Then what I should say is that any price over and above $1,000 makes this a net gain for me. That doesn't say I should ask for a $1,000 fee. I should ask for the largest fee that I think the sucker will pay. But if that largest fee is not as much as $1,000, then I won't go.
As it turns out, this is a rather old idea, as we learned from the man on the $100 bill, Ben Franklin, who expressed it somewhat differently in the late 1700s. You, sir, once wrote that time is money. And 250 years later, it's become a cliché. What was it exactly that you wrote?
Well, it was somewhat more than that in my little epistle, Advice to a Young Tradesman.
In the pamphlet Advice to a Young Tradesman, which Ben published himself in 1748, he coined the famous phrase, using as his example a worker who usually makes 10 shillings a day, but chooses to work only half a day, then hits the pub and spends 6 pennies there.
Remember that time is money. He that can earn 10 shillings a day by his labor and goes abroad or sits idle 1/2 of that day, though he but spends but 6 pence during his diversion, ought not to reckon that the only expense. He has really spent, or rather thrown away, 5 shillings besides.
So your point is that time is money in the sense that he's foregone the 5 shillings he would otherwise have made.
He has not the opportunity, right.
Ah, and they now call that opportunity cost, you know.
No, I've not heard of that. Opportunity cost.
The cost of having been idle when he could have been earning money.
Ah, I see your point. I see your point.
I think it was your point. Now, the concept of opportunity cost includes all the resources that go into any course of action. Cash out of pocket, time, energy, and so forth. Resources both hidden and obvious, translated into the coin of the realm in economics, money. Resources that I could have used to do something else. So the opportunity cost of going to the game is the value to me of what I could have done instead. And this is crucial since the basic premise of economics is trade-offs. The idea that you can't have it all. So what opportunities am I missing if I'm at the BC game?
You could have been at the Nutmeg Ballet, or you could have been at a nightclub. We all have choices to make, and every choice involves giving up something else.
If you choose one of them rather than the other, the opportunity cost of doing that thing is the one that you don't do, the option that you don't take.
And what it's worth to you.
And what it's worth to you, its value to you.
Solow uses the example of this very course.
The opportunity cost of the time and trouble you're spending taking this course is precisely the best activity that you would substitute for it if you decided you couldn't. Imagine that it got canceled. Imagine that the course went up in smoke somehow. You would have so many hours a week on your hands. There is one best thing that you would decide to do with that time. So in effect, you're sacrificing that in order to take the course, and that's your opportunity cost.
People often forget this, though, right? I mean,
People, first of all, they think of cost only as purely monetary. They don't have the notion that there's a scarce resource, often their own time and effort, and to use it in one place is not to use it in another. And when you're not when you're not doing something that you could have done, you are sacrificing that thing. You're giving it up, and that's your cost.
There's one last small matter to resolve. That fanatic at the football game. When we forced the issue, it turns out that even he had a price.
No, but if I offer you $1 million for your ticket.
I might do that, yeah.
Might do that because for anything at some price, the opportunity cost for practically anyone simply becomes too high.
Okay. Well, we're going to leave off with, well, let's wrap it up. Okay, so please do this. At least let me know you're here, okay? And then do chapter 1. Excuse me, module 1, which is chapters 1 and 2. Chapter 1 will be due on Monday or Tuesday. Okay.
Do we have to do Who Are You every single time after class, or just once? Because I already did it last time, after last class.
You already did what?
The Who Are You? Do you have to do it after every class?
No. Sorry, I'm glad you mentioned that. No, only one time.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to know if you've been here and you know how to get in the class. I mean, just one time, just for me. We're not going to take roll that way. In fact, I don't know how we're going to take roll ever. But so I guess the bottom line is going to be just your activity in the class. I mean, we're going to have discussions. We got a discussion in the next module, and you know, by your activity, by your work, I'll know if you're involved or not. But just up front, because if we've got students out there who don't know how to get here online, I need to go find them. Okay, so that's all I'm asking you to do that for.
Okay.
And if you don't feel like saying much, you know, some students just say, hi, you know, I'm so and so, and that's it. That's good enough. That's enough. So go through all of this stuff. Homework, okay, get into MindTap. Here's the link. Do chapter 1. Do all that stuff. Again, lots of junk to do, but and then Tuesday we'll wrap up chapter 2. We've got just a couple more examples and do a few more problems, maybe a video, that kind of thing. We don't want to get going too fast, but we want to get off to a good start here. So don't worry, we'll slow it down as we get into chapter 3 and 4 for sure. All right, so let's wind it up here. I've got can't leave with. Let's see, there we go. We gotta watch. We'll leave it with watching the opportunity cost wrap. Here we go. See you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend.
Yo, what's up, y'all? I'm about to tell y'all a little story about opportunity cost. So just the other day I'm lounging around in my boxes. It's not real productive cause I also go to college. I gotta go to college cause my dream is building rockets. I know that's tight, but the opportunity cost is how when I lounge around, feet never leave the ground. I should be studying, but books are nowhere to be found. Have a huge final that's due real soon. I partied last night and I slept till noon. Seems my dream is the real opportunity cost of not working hard and sleeping a lot. I had so much free time that I could devote, but I threw it away. Now I got no hope. Opportunity cost, make the right choice so the opportunity's lost. Opportunity cost, make the right choice so the opportunity's lost. Opportunity cost. Eugene, where's my music, Eugene?
Maybe the real opportunity cost here was you playing video games all night instead of you charging your iPod.
No, Eugene, no, give me the camera.
Have a good day.
You too.
Have a good one.
See you.
Oh, fucking God.
Have a good day.
What was that?
Have a good day.
Thank you. See you all Tuesday.
Wonderful day.
I just had a quick question.
Oh, sure. Shoot.
So it's just chapter 1 for homework, not chapter 1 and 2 on MindTap?
Well, 2, yeah, you can do 2. I'm just saying 1 is, we're talking about 2. And I'll make that clear in a course announcement. When I post this meeting, I'll clear that up a little bit. But yes, by all means, start on chapter 2. I'm just saying chapter 1 is due on Tuesday. But
right.
yeah, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. But by all means, start on 2 when you're done with 1.
And do we have to watch the lectures for homework, or is that kind of just like on if we want to?
You mean the ones I posted there?
Yeah, like the videos.
Well, I highly recommend them, but no, you don't have to. Some of them I'm going to watch here with you, like I did the one Paul Solomon video. But no, those are pretty much for your supplements to help you understand things better. For example, the one about graphs, that first one in module 1 in the homework, there's a video lecture. In the video lecture folder, there's a graph review that if it's been a while since you've dealt with graphs, that would be very helpful, 8 or 9 minutes long. So these are just things to help you out, you know, I would recommend them, but I honestly don't know if you watched it or not. But students who watch them tend to do better. I've often referred confused students to those videos, and I say, oh yeah, boy, I should have been watching those all along.
All right,
and again,
thank you.
it's up to you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, sure.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thanks. You too. Appreciate it.
Have a wonderful day.
I thank you very much. And you too. All right. Gonna end the meeting and see you Tuesday for those who are still here. Bye-bye.